You are tired of average. You want more out of life. You know you're capable of something greater. This show will help you become resilient in your home, at work, and in your community. Welcome to the Resilient Humans Podcast with your host, Kevin Wood. Welcome back to the Resilient Humans Podcast. And today's guest brings something rare to the conversation around weight and change, both professional expertise and lived experience. Brian Baumal is a registered psychotherapist specializing in eating behavior, weight management, and restrictive eating disorders. He helps clients interrupt the cycle of shame, perfectionism, relapse, and burnout that often derails so many people that are trying to improve their health. But Brian doesn't just teach this, he's lived it. He's maintained a 100 plus pound weight loss for over 13 years and only now beginning to share his personal story a decade into his clinical experience. His message is clear. Lasting change does not come from motivation or perfection. You may have heard that before on this podcast. It comes from resilience, self-trust, and systems that will hold when life gets hard. Brian, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Kevin. That's a great introduction.
Right on. So I read in your bio prior to this that you had we'll call it a life-altering possible trip to Disney World. Can you take us back to that moment where everything shifted for you and what made that moment impossible to ignore?
Well, there are probably many people who go to Disney World and have life-altering moments when they go there. Mine was just a little different than most other people's. I go down to Florida. I've got many family members there and extended family members. And whenever they have an event, a lot of us from Canada will go down just for the event as a way of celebrating. So I had about 30 family members that were down in Florida at the same time I was. And while I was at Disney World, I was alone. What happened was I thought I was going to have like a minor medical incident. I was, about 120, I didn't use a scale, 120, 130 pounds heavier than what I was now, not eating well at all. And I thought, this is it. This is it. And after about a minute or a couple of seconds, I was just fine. I don't even know what it was. But all of a sudden, I realized, I'm in the happiest place on earth, and I'm not very happy right now. And what came flooding into that were two things. First of all, as a Canadian going down to the US, if you are hospitalized and you don't have an insurance policy, which I didn't, that's a $50,000 to $100,000 US bill that you incur. And I'm like, oh my God, I could have just financially crippled me, my wife, my new son at the time. We could have had the money and not a cent left over, kind of thing. And then I thought, oh my God, I would have been in the hospital and I would have had 30 family members asking, where's Brian? Why isn't he here? Oh, he's in the hospital recovering from whatever. And I just had this vision of them going, he really shouldn't be eating the way he's been eating. And so at that moment, what made it impossible to ignore was the immense amount of shame that I felt for myself at that time. It was very acute. And at that point, I realized I was living with an immense amount of shame and had to make a change. That's what was impossible to ignore, that the shame below the surface was not allowing me to have a great time at places when I should have had a great time. It was making me think of horrible outcomes for myself. And I said, I have to rid myself of this shame and these feelings more than anything else. So that's what made it impossible to ignore.
That's interesting to hear. Oftentimes we hear that shame is such a bad thing. We try to avoid it as much as possible. But it sounds like for you, it was a catalyst for change. How do we go from feeling that sense of shame and knowing it's not a good thing to feel, but for you, it kind of worked out?
Shame is what we call an aversive emotion. Guilt is another
Hmm.
aversive emotion. Embarrassment is another aversive emotion. What it means is we don't like to feel it. It is not a good feeling. When I had that feeling in Disney World and a couple of other times, people who are in shame cover their face, they run away. It is not a good feeling. So, what we want to do is work to avoid it and work to understand what is causing it. That's really the big thing that we
Mm,
want to do is we want to work to understand what is causing it, and we want to work to understand how the negative avoidance of it may cause us to have some really bad behaviors as well.
right.
So as a therapist, I learned something very interesting from one of my mentors. She said, in your sessions, you never want to shame a client. You never want to shame a patient. But if you do, work with it.
Right.
Because, if you're not doing it on purpose, if it just sort of comes up, then that's information to work with. And that's what happened with me in Disney World. It was a horrible feeling. But it was like, okay, there's information here for me to work with. I have to figure out how to avoid doing this. Let's lean into the entire experience of it. So on the one hand, we want to avoid it. I don't want to cause it in you. You don't want to cause it in me. I don't want to cause it in my son. I don't want to cause it in my patients. But when it's there, let's figure out what's going on and work for it. One of my another mentor has a phrase that says, "At the moment of embarrassment, there's a moment of growth."
Mm. It sounds like the big difference is that you made a connection between the two. There was,
I think that's a very fair I think that's a very fair assumption,
right,
and I think in general that's what therapy tries to
right.
do is draw connections between things people don't necessarily want to draw connections towards, or we shine a light in places where people don't
Mm,
necessarily want to go, and gently explore that area. So you're right. I did draw a connection there, and that connection has literally put me in this chair right now.
right. And I also noticed that you talk a lot about the inner saboteur. How
Yes.
would that, how would you describe that voice to somebody who feels stuck in it right now?
Well, maybe what I'll do is combine shame with that inner saboteur because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
are related in
Hmm.
my view. So I have a formula, and it's a formula for resilience, actually. Shame leads to quick, leads to inner saboteur, leads to failure. So within my formula, I have inner saboteur. So let's start there. The inner saboteur says, you're never going to reach your goals. You're never going to hit this weight loss goal. Stop it right now. You've had one failure. Abandon the effort. And there's the inner saboteur right there. Inner saboteur leads to failure. Now, what causes the inner saboteur? I'll just focus on my area, weight loss and weight management, but oftentimes it's the desire to lose weight quickly. So we have quick inner saboteur and failure. And the reason for the quick, or rather, what people do is today is the middle of February, let's say, and we go, all right, by June 1st, I've got a wedding and it's this many weeks. And I figure I have to lose 4 pounds a week between now and June. And that means I've got to have only 1,000 calories and work out once a day, blah, blah. You do
Yeah.
the math, and boom, away you go. And that math, that calculus there is based on quick. I want to get it done quickly. I want to get it done quickly. And when you fail at your first attempt, or when you fail 2 days in a row, you realize, uh-oh, June 1st is not happening now. And that's when the inner saboteur comes in. So we have this desire for quick leads to inner saboteur, leads to failure. And what causes quick is shame. People want, in my world in weight management, of course, people want to lose weight quickly. But the reason why is because when that person goes to that wedding on June 1st, that person's clothes may be ill-fitting. That person's Uncle Bob may poke him in the stomach and go, "Hey, I'll get you Ozempic for half price." People will make other comments, "Why are you eating so much?" And that's the shame. That's the shame. They don't want to necessarily lose the weight by that date as much as they want to stop the shame. And it's the shame at that event, but it's also the shame of being the biggest person in the room when they walk into a room. The shame when they go on a flight and have to have a seatbelt extender for them. That's what they want gone quickly. So what I do is I draw the connection to shame and quick. And I say, okay, you've got a quick goal, but is shame driving the bus on that? Because if shame is driving the bus, the quick will lead to failure. The quick will lead to inner saboteur and failure. So let's understand that shame is driving the bus and then figure out where we work in the equation of things. So your question was about inner saboteur, but I hope I've given you more broad formula of how I sort of work with it.
You just have a more eloquent way of describing it. So when I work with my nutrition clients, we call that inner saboteur the fuck it moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's really it. Like they screwed up once or two times or whatever it is. And then in their brain, they just say, well, fuck it. It's like you're driving down the street and you get a flat tire. You just say, fuck it, and pop the other four tires. Like you would never do that.
No,
you just deal with the thing that threw you off in the first place. Right.
And the difference is that you don't feel shame for having a flat tire.
Correct.
The flat tire was caused by a nail on the road, by not filling the tire up properly, whatever the case is. It wasn't caused by you. And look, weight isn't necessarily caused by the person either. Let's make that clear. Society makes us think that weight is caused by the person, but that's the difference. There is little to no shame in a popped tire, whereas once someone comes off their plan, they begin to think, I really should have been in control of this.
Yeah.
Not in control. Damn it. And the shame comes flooding right in. And the fuck it moment is often sort of a mindless way of dealing with the shame. Fuck it, I'm just going to eat. I'm just going to eat, and it'll be done. So in the tire example, you're not responsible for it. In this one, people think they are responsible.
Right.
For
There's
it.
other factors involved.
Oh, huge.
That's we call it looking back and looking ahead. So we want to look back and say, what were the circumstances leading up to that overeating incident or whatever it was? And then if you can do that for multiple incidents, you can identify certain patterns. It seems to be at 3:00 on Friday every week that this thing happens. Why? Oh, it's because my boss always calls a meeting and I want to just go home and spend time with my family. So that's outside of your control, but you're just responding to situations.
The other thing that I will add as well that's important to note is you're right. From a behavioral tracking point of view, I do the same. I will have people notice, and I use the example of a boss as well and a meeting and so on and so forth. But if people have been eating this way for 20 or 30 years, there is fundamental habituation going on as well. So it may not even be the boss's meeting as much as it may just be for 20 years. When I sit down on that couch, the chips come out. There is no preceding event other than the habituation that has gone on. So if you can recognize that there may be habits involved as well as circumstance, then right. But the point is, the person isn't in control. The habit's in control. The boss is in control. And so if we can begin to eliminate the shame, then we have something to work with.
Right. Now, where does perfectionism fall into all of this? Because I know there's a lot of people that have that all or nothing mindset. Well, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all. And I
Yes.
often talk about a light switch. Like, your diet isn't a light switch. It's not either on or off. We can dial this up or down depending on the day or the circumstances.
Perfectionism is another form of black and white thinking. So within my formula, we've got shame leads to quick, leads to perfectionism, or black and white thinking, or sensitivity to failure leads to quitting at that point in time. So perfectionism is the same thing. I want to do this perfectly, because when I do it perfectly, I will lose weight as fast as possible. It will be as easy for me as possible. I want to rid myself of the shame of standing in line and having 2 tubs of ice cream in my cart, and possibly the person behind me going, hey, have you tried frozen yogurt yet? So it's all of those sort of thoughts and behaviors around perfectionism, black and white thinking, all or nothing thinking, are a function of that quick and shame. But I'll take it in another direction if I could, and I'll come back
Yeah.
to my personal story. So I had this incident at Disney World, and I slowly began to plan how I was going to manage my weight. And this incident happened 13 years ago, which would have been about 2012. And about 8 years prior to that, in 2004, I had exercise bulimia. I didn't know it at the time, but in 2004, I was working out twice a day in secret and only eating 800 calories. Now, as I'm planning in 2012 how to lose weight, my first thought was, okay, working out twice a day and eating 800 calories didn't work out. So does that mean I have to work out 3 times a day and only eat 600 calories? This is honestly a thought I had.
Yeah.
Is that what I
Yeah.
had to do? Like, do I have to be uber perfect? To your point, do I have to be uber perfect? And then the thought was, oh no, no sane person works out 3 times a day and eats 600 calories. Like, nobody is that perfect. And then the thought was, well, maybe you went too hard the last time and it was unsustainable, and you have to go easier on yourself. And all of a sudden, I was like, wow, easier. What a concept. Like, it was such a big, like,
Yeah.
what a concept. I don't have to be perfect. And then it becomes negotiating what the imperfection looks like for you. I'll give you another example. I had started in working out, going to a gym in 2012 and getting myself in shape. And after about 2 weeks of going to the gym, I stopped. My first thought was, damn it, you've been here hundreds of times. You just fucked it up after 2 weeks. And a thought just came racing through my head. It said, no, you idiot, you've taken a break. And within 4 hours, I was back at the gym again.
Yeah.
And you know, we just have to understand that what is driving the boat there is a little bit of, or what is driving the bus is a bit of shame, that we want to get things done quickly. And we also have to understand that we have put ourselves in a fairly dangerous situation. Like, our cholesterol readings are not going to go down overnight. Our diabetes is not going to be cured overnight. The weight is not going to fall off overnight. And when you allow yourself imperfection, those things are going to last longer. And we work at just saying that's okay, as long as things are coming down slowly. If your doctor's happy, we're happy, and so on and so forth. So I often tell people when I work with them, we're trading speed or perfection for longer term results.
So let's talk about results. Results are more than just a number on the scale. So what are some other ways that you help clients measure success?
Well, so I mean, the number on a scale is so fraught. Okay, I can tell you in the 18 months in 2012 and 2013 that I was actually actively losing weight. I weighed myself 4 times because I knew if I stepped on the scale and if the number didn't show what I wanted, I would have stopped. So I'm like, okay, don't do something that's going to make you stop. So other things that I looked for: was I sleeping better? Was my mood better? Was my mobility better? Were my numbers better from my doctor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so absolutely the other results are critical. And I'm going to tell you something about how I work with people for a moment, because weight is not the important factor. But when I start with people, counterintuitively, I have them weigh themselves every week and report to me. And the reason for that is it's exposure therapy. And by exposure therapy, I mean, you have a fear of flying. How do you overcome the fear of flying? You get on a plane, you travel. Yep. Well, if people fear the scale, expose yourself to the scale. So what I tell people when I start weighing them, I say, if you ever hear me say, yay, you lost 5 pounds, or boo, you put on 3, fire me. I tell them right there, fire me. That is not the purpose, not the purpose. Again, in this shame leads to quick, leads to perfectionism, leads to failure formula, we don't want people to run away from where, or we want to slow people down from running away from where they are. And fundamental to where they are is their weight. So I have them weigh themselves and report to me on it in order just to say, are you okay with where you are? Are you okay that you had a really fantastic week and the scale didn't move? Because this is going to happen a lot. So I rather you get used to it. So that's how I work with the scale a little bit. And also how I encourage people, and anyone who works in weight management really says the scale is but one number and usually not a very good number to look at. So we want you to look at so many other different things.
Nice. We always use an in-body scanner for us, so we can tell if somebody went up in weight. Well, what was it? Oh shit, you just gained 2 pounds of muscle and 3 pounds of water. Look at that. That's a great thing. Your body fat percentage actually went down, not up. So that's progress, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes people get so obsessed with the scale number, but yes, it's sort of beyond my scope to have them do a scan like that. But I do tell them things like water weight and muscle and so on and so forth. But absolutely, if you have that service available, it shows them, okay, there's a reason why it didn't drop.
Yeah, they're like, oh, my clothes feel better, but my weight's gone up. Well, let's figure out why, right? And hop on, and we'll find out. So
yeah.
Absolutely. So if somebody comes to you and they say they want to make a change, you're obviously going to promote sustainable change, not the quick fix, right? No. Slow it down. And that's what sustainable is. What would be the first system that they should build in order to get in that direction?
The first sustainable system that they should build is fundamentally changing their relationship with food. If I could, I don't. Does that count as a
Yeah,
sustainable?
absolutely.
Okay,
100%.
okay,
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
good.
Often
Okay,
it's something in the mind. It's not necessarily, an action or a habit. It's,
yeah,
it's a
okay,
mindset
all
shift.
right,
I,
yeah.
I agree. I get you.
And changing the relationship with food means changing the relationship with body. It means addressing the shame part of it. And the way I have people build a system around changing the relationship with food is I have them start planning their meals based on where they are going to eat and when they are going to eat. I don't focus on what they are going to eat or
Mm-hmm.
how much they are going to eat at this point. And the system there is to understand a number of different things. So first of all, they meet themselves where they are. Let's just start where you are. Don't even think of substituting low cal popcorn for potato chips if that's what you're doing. Don't even think of doing that. Again, when people track and everything, I say, if you ever hear me say, you know what, blueberries look like M&Ms, why don't you shift over to blueberries? Like if I ever make any diet advice, fire me. That is not the purpose of this. What we're doing is starting where you are. So we are recognizing that the when and the where play a large part in your eating. We want people to have, generally speaking, regular meals: breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack. I'm a little open in that. If somebody legitimately comes to me and says, you know what, I know my metabolism, I know my way of eating, and lunch, I've tried it for decades. Like, I will believe them in that. I will say to them, you know what? As long as you don't come home ravenous for dinner, we're
Right.
good. But if you're coming home every day ravenous for dinner, we'll talk about it. But that's a piece of data that we begin to look at. Oh, I skipped a meal and I'm ravenous. Um, the other thing too is, the boss always schedules a meeting, and then I notice I'm eating more. When we track the when and when we track the when and the where, we get the habitual eating in as well. And what happens is, over a couple of weeks to a couple of months, about 4 to 8 weeks of this tracking, people say, you know what? Now I'm ready to change my M&Ms to blueberries. Well, they don't go quite like that, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they will say, you know what? Now I'm ready to have breakfast. I'm ready to have breakfast. And I'm like, great. You make the change that you are ready for. And it's the combination of, like, what I'm always looking for in their tracking and in talking about it is the shame and the quick. I'm, as a therapist, that is sort of where I'm trained. So I will say, what's it like writing down every day that you have a whole bag of M&Ms? What's it like reporting this to me? You're planning for M&Ms right now. What's going through your head? And I am trying to not I'm trying to lean into that shame a little bit, not bring it out, but as you pointed out early on, use the connection to shame as a way of causing change. So what are your feelings around recording M&Ms every day? Does that have to change? Yes or no? So that's the system that I build. I have people write down or track their eating, when they're going to eat, where they're going to eat. They plan for that a couple of days in advance. They follow that. They look for patterns. They look to see if shame is driving the bus. And when they are ready, they they make change. And I have had immense success doing this. You mentioned in your introduction that it's really only been after 10 years of practice I've sort of come out and done this. And that's the reason why, is I can now sit here and say I have very good clinical track record success using this. It's a hybrid method of cognitive behavioral therapy for eating disorders, to be technical. But I do have a very good track record of success using this form of cognitive behavioral therapy tracking.
Yeah, and it sounds like you ask a lot of questions, and it feels
Mhm.
like you overlay a lot of motivational interviewing on top of
Yep.
that with a hint of choice theory in there. I mean, there's a lot of it, and I can tell just in the way we're
I
talking, we're talking in the same language, so it's good to hear that.
I hadn't I know those. I didn't train in them, but yes, I mean a lot of the therapy and
They
interviewing
overlap.
modalities overlap. And again, I'll ask people before talking about their eating, what's your weight? Okay, and again, how do you feel about being at this weight? And I'll tell you, it takes a very careful therapist to make sure that you're not leading people into too much shame. I have had one or two people when I started out with this method. It's like, oh my God, you asked me to weigh myself. And what I say at that point is I say, okay, just the request has already done its job. I say, okay, let's take the weight off the table. Let's take the weekly weighing off the table. You're reacting right now to even report it, to even thinking about doing that. What's going on for you right now? So the request has done its job right at the start. And if I feel someone will really have too much shame in the weight, I won't do it. Like, you don't want to shame the client. You want to be able to work with that. It's a very different
Yep.
it's a very different thing. So I incorporate the weight in there, and that's the system. Correlate. I would say don't focus on the weight number, but just plan your meals, gather your data, and when you're ready to make a change, do it.
So what a lot of people think, and this is a myth that I wish would die, but that they need a lot of motivation and they need a lot of discipline in order to be successful. What would you tell those people?
Um, I think a lot when they say a lot of motivation, a lot of discipline, no, no. You just need to have it in little bits. You need some. Don't get me like. It is raining here in Toronto. It is hard for me to go to the gym, and I go to I go to a gym similar to CrossFit, and at 7 o'clock when people are coming in the morning, no one wants to be there. Okay, and we all make jokes about it. When it's cold and snowy, we all make jokes about it. There's a little bit of motivation that is required to get you there. But for me, working out is like brushing my teeth, honestly. If I don't work out, I will not sleep well. My mood will go down. I have a very high patient load. I have a very high appointment load. I need to make sure that if I have an appointment at 8 p.m. at night, that I am up to doing it, and exercise helps with that. So I don't think that is motivation. I think getting there at 7 o'clock in the morning requires a little bit of motivation. I'll tell you what I tell my I give my patients two stories. Um, when I just used to go to the gym on my own without going to classes, oftentimes I would finish work, sit on my couch, and it would be a constant battle for me to get to the gym, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't wait for my motivation to go up to a 10 to get to the gym.
Mm.
I would wait for my motivation to get to a 3, which is enough to just get me off the bloody couch. I just needed it to go to a 2 or a 3 to get me off the couch. So as soon as I had it, I would dart right to the door. I have a colleague at Dalhousie University. He is a marathon runner. He trains, and his agreement with himself is, I'm only going to run for 5 minutes, and if I don't like it after 5 minutes, I come back. So there's a little motivation, but as you say, a lot, not needed.
Have you heard the story about how Terry Fox ran across Canada? What his goal was?
No, but I'm assuming that it wasn't to go all across Canada.
It was to go to the next lamppost.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And he just reset the goal. As soon as he hit the next telephone pole, he goes, cool, now I'm going to hit the next one. And it's just light post after light post. And that's
Yeah.
what this whole journey of weight loss is like. A lot of people, I feel they're looking at the top of the mountain and they're like, that's too far. There's no way I can make it to the top. And they forget that all they need to do is focus on the next couple steps that are in front of them.
That was something that I learned very quickly. I would say after a couple of months, because after a couple of months, things start to become routine. You start to settle into things, and the sexiness, the excitement wears off, and you have to find some motivation to move forward. And that's what it was. It's like, okay, I have to take this every meal at a time. It's just one
Yeah.
meal. Like it really is true. Just make it through the one bloody meal and don't look too far ahead on yourself. So I agree. I agree with that completely.
So I want to take it back to your personal story. Was there a
Mhm.
point during, let's say, since you've lost the weight,
Mhm.
has there ever been any thoughts or feelings that came around where you thought you might regain that weight back? And if so, what helped you stay steady?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I am not again. I don't use the scale. I have not stepped on a scale in long time. I am not at my lowest weight by far. So I have put on weight. I'm 57 years old, and I'm sure being in the profession that you're in, you know that my endurance, my vigor is starting to decline. My muscles are starting to hurt more. Somebody once asked me, they said, Brian, if you had to name this chapter, if this phase in your life as a chapter in a book, what would you name it without missing a beat? I said, snap, crackle, and pop. My body makes noises I never expected.
Yeah.
Okay, so of course there have been times where I have put on the weight. And all I do is I evaluate, okay, where am I? Is it realistic? Am I happy where I am? Fundamentally, am I happy where I am? I have a lot of back pain. So I'm often now guided by how can I reduce the back pain, even if that means more yoga, for example, or more Pilates, for example, and less 30-minute cardio, or going into my studio and speaking to the trainers and saying, hey, look, I leave here with more back pain than when I come in. Let's modify this. Let's modify that 30 seconds of deadlifting. Do I need to lift more even? Like I don't know. But so I take the focus off of weight entirely, and it's more about back pain. It's more about quality of life. It's more about my overall health, because I am in those declining years now, and I have to accept that fact. I also have to accept the fact that I was heavier beforehand, and that changes my metabolism compared to someone who's never lost weight before. I have a steel rod in my back that impacts me as well. So what I do note, or another part of this, is that if I find myself eating a lot or binging in ways I shouldn't, then I say, what's going on in my life? What has to change? What fundamentally has to change? And then I make a change. So I use the binging to tell me what's going on. But I have put on weight. I accept it, and for me, has nothing to do with me slipping off where I am. That will never ever change. I feel too good now to ever give up exercise and eating properly. How that looks at the age of 57 is going to be changing all the time, though.
If you don't mind, I'd like to
Mhm.
just give you a little coaching tip here of a
Please.
personal experience. You're 57. My mom only started CrossFit when she was 59,
Yep.
and she's still kicking it 3 days a week at the gym, even after
Yep.
suffering 2 strokes, rheumatoid arthritis, breast cancer, you name it. You are not in your years of decline, Brian.
Oh, yeah. No, no, no.
Yeah, you got a
Here's,
lot of years left, man.
oh, here's what I say. Like, I work out 3 to 5 times a week.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I never, ever, ever miss that. But what I notice is that when I was 100 pounds overweight at the age of 43, I had more vigor on a spin bike than I probably would now. At least that's me. Now again, you're in this field. I'm not, but that doesn't stop me from spinning. That doesn't
Right.
stop me from
Yep.
going to CrossFit. It never will. It means modifying the exercises
Yep.
a little bit. It means on a spin bike not standing up as long as I did before. Oh God, no! The other thing too is this much I know is that my muscle is like a bank, like a financial bank.
Yep.
I'm starting to make more withdrawals from it than I am putting deposits in. So unless I continually work out, then I get into trouble. So I am not stopping
Love
because
it.
I know I need to put in more muscle than somebody 20 years younger than me.
It's true.
Yep.
Muscle is the key to longevity and capability.
Yes.
That's what puts most people into old age homes. It's yes, there's the mental decline, but there's also the loss of muscle mass. You lose your ability to survive in the world. And I told this on a previous podcast. The standard toilet is 16 inches high. If you can't squat to 16 inches on your own, you've lost your freedom, and that's a dangerous place to be. So keep squatting, people.
Very, very true. I have trouble doing lunges, but I could squat very well.
There you go. That's
There
good.
we go.
Brian, this has been an awesome conversation. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you'd like to bring up?
Um, I actually think we're pretty good. You managed to cover all of it in quite a good bit of time. The only thing that I can say is, if people drop the expectation of quick weight loss,
Mm,
they also have to examine where the shame is in that. A lot of times I see people when they lose weight, they do the bare bones minimum. Somebody doesn't have sugar in their coffee. Oh, I'm doing keto. And then they'll have a sandwich for right in front of them, kind of thing, or just whole wheat pasta for me because I'm doing keto, kind of thing. We do it in a very light kind of way, and there are there's a you know there's a lot behind these areas of weight loss and management and exercise in order to get results. And I think what prevents us from really understanding them, it's not that they're very difficult, but it's the shame that makes us say, I want to do this quickly. I want to do this quickly. I want to do this simple. I want to do this quick. I want to do this simple. So I'm just going to not put sugar in my coffee and pray to God that I drop 20 pounds
the
past the pasta, please.
math ain't mathin'.
The math ain't mathing. Or what ends up happening is people go the other way. They do it in an unsustainable kind of manner, which is what I did back in 2004. And those unsustainable habits, in some people, form full-blown eating disorders. It
Yep.
did in me. It
Yep.
it absolutely did in me. I think what happens is people sort of approach a point where in this unsustainable exercise regimen, sometimes the unsustainable exercise could go for months, it could go for years, but they approach a point where their body says, make a decision, either go back up, which I think about 90% of people do, or go down and get yourself into some real shit with a full-blown eating disorder. So I think people just have to moderate on all ends, read, educate yourself, use the professionals that are available to you. Listen to podcasts like this to understand some of the deeper stuff. And if you put the shame aside, you'll do pretty well.
Love that. Actually, I like the education component too. I've been teaching some of my clients recently what metabolism is and how it works. And I draw it out and I show them. They're like, what? I just thought if I worked out an extra hour a day, I could burn. No, it's not going to change anything. I saw a video once of there were a couple guys. There was one on a treadmill, and
Mhm.
they timed him. How many calories did he burn in 20 minutes? And it was
Yeah,
like 200 calories or something.
yeah.
There was a guy standing beside him eating pizza for 20 minutes. Well, how many calories did he eat? It's like 3,800. You can't compare the two. Like, and in the
Right.
little chart that I draw out, it's like there's two sides to this. It's what you're putting in, it's what you're putting out. But what you're
Yeah.
putting out is never going to win. You can't unless you're
The
Michael
way I
Phelps, right?
the way I say it actually is because most of the people I work with have not been in shape for a while or something like that. I say you walk 60 minutes on a treadmill and you'll burn about 150 calories. They go, good. I say that is wiped out in 60 seconds by one can of Coke, which has
Correct.
160 in
Yep. Yep.
in it. So it's the same kind of thing. And then you get into the fact that the glucose goes into your body and gets metabolized like that, and the insulin immediately comes running out, and you have sugar spikes and all of that stuff. I have just a very basic understanding of metabolism.
Yeah. You got
160
it.
calories of Coke is very different than 160 calories of brown rice, both of which are carbohydrate at their base level, but extremely different in how our body works with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brian, I like to end all of my shows by asking my guests the same question. And this is, how would you define resiliency in your own words?
Ooh, that is a really good humility. That's the answer. Humility. Um, I have been extremely unhumble during parts of my life, and there are times where I've been extremely humble. And resilient people are humble people.
What does that look like in daily life? How would you notice that in somebody?
Oh God, how would I notice that? How many I mean, it's just like how many mistakes do I make in daily life that I just say, all right, I can manage this. I can wait. I don't have to get it answered now. I can come up with another. I can come up with another solution. I'll give you the best example of how it shows up in daily life for me. Um, when I do therapy, and as a podcaster and a coach, you may have had this yourself. You ask a client a question, any question, and they ramble off somewhere else. I may have done that too. I may in this interview, I may have done that. They ramble off somewhere else. I'm like, I used to think that's not the answer I'm looking for. They're not answering the question. Damn it! No, 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 no! You've blown my whole session. You're talking about anxiety when you should be talking about depression. Just anything like, and I have so in every session, I will still have that unhumble muscle of like they're not answering the question correctly. I've done something wrong. This is going in a place I don't plan. Like, no, it's going exactly where it needs to go, and you're doing a damn fine job of that. So that is how it shows up for me. I'm much less rigid. Resiliency requires flexibility. Resiliency requires us to confront failure, confront things that go off track, and just get back on.
Love it. What a great message. Brian, how can my followers find you if they want more information?
Yeah, I have a website, Aliva Psychotherapy, ALIVA psychotherapy.com. All my information is on there. My story is on there. How to work with me is on there. I'm slowly going to be putting more video content on there, but off the top, that would just be the place to go and look for me.
Awesome. I'll make sure to share that in the show notes. So if anybody wants, they can just click on through.
Appreciate it.
Thanks again, Brian, for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I'm wishing you all the best.
Likewise, I really enjoyed it. Have a great day.
Take care.
Okay.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest episodes, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.